So let's just quickly have a look at what SEO is and why it's important for you to consider using it in your business. I think one of the things that is, with anything like this, because it's a little unknown, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what SEO actually is. And I want you to think about SEO as a process of making changes or improvements to your website to change the rankings that you're currently getting. Now, in the text above my head, that it says to better the rankings, but you might be ranking for something you don't want to be. So, you want to make website changes so your website is performing in the best possible way to attract the right people to your website. And that's all SEO is. So it's just about making changes. And some of those changes on your website, some of those are in your website, so the back end, and some of those things are off your website, just on the internet. These are changes that you can make that really affect the way that the search engines rank your website. Now, when I talk about search engines, I'm talking about things like Google. So when you do a search in Google, that is a search engine. Now, Google is the main one we're going to sort of talk about today because Google is the one that most people use. But it could be Bing, Yahoo. What's the other one? The Explorer. There's a few different ones out there. But the main one is Google, and Google is where almost 58% of traffic comes from that's going to websites. So we'll look at those stats in a second. But that's what SEO is. So why is SEO important? Well, I always like to think about it like this. If you're not doing it, your competitors probably are. And if your competitors are doing SEO, the likelihood is that they're getting all of the traffic. And, if there's search traffic, if you think about, the way that marketing works, there's a whole bunch of search traffic there. You've got to try and attract those to your business to turn them into leads. And until they're attracted to your business, you're never going to make a sale. You're never going to make any money out of that traffic. It is just there. So the search engine's already got all the traffic. We already know that people typically go to Google to search for something. And so if we know that they're already there, then what we need to do is try and get our website in a position where we can attract that traffic to our website. Now, our website has to be built in a way that it then turns that traffic into a lead and then into a customer. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but not a lot. Mostly what we're going to talk about today is just how do you make sure that your website shows up on the first page of Google? Because my feeling is if it's not early in the search results, you're just not going to get the traffic. Now, what happens is that you can build a website, and maybe if you can pop your website addresses into the chat box for me, just if you can put those in there if you want to volunteer, and we'll have a look at some of your websites. But don't worry, I'm not going to rip them apart or anything. I'm actually going to help you and give you some free tips and advice if you pop them in there. Now, if you think about why you built your website in the first place, most people build their website because they want it to be a lead generator. They want to attract traffic to it. They want to send potential customers to it to showcase their product. And originally, a website was sort of, I guess, a replacement for a brochure. So if you're a bit older like me, we used to have, thank you for that, Tim, for sharing that. We used to have, a brochure that we'd hand out at networking events and we give to people. These days, I can imagine if you were a printer, you probably don't print many brochures anymore. Mostly, most of people's marketing dollar would go into setting up their website. So they'd set it up as a brochure. Now, we also need to use our website as a marketing tool to attract traffic to it. So it can't just be a stagnant brochure. It needs to be something that's built in such a way that it attracts traffic to it. So that's why SEO is important. And once again, if you're not doing it, I can guarantee that your competitors will be. Now, here's a report from Ahrefs. Now, Ahrefs is one of two major tools in the world that agencies use. And this is the tool that I use and you'll see this when I share my screen shortly, and I'll share this tool and we'll do some studies of a few different websites. But what they do is they actually, being one of the two biggest in the world, they gather the stats from all of the websites that people are scanning through their tool. And you can see here that Google represents 57.8% of web traffic driver, right? So if you think about that, that means that almost 60% of the traffic that's being driven to websites is from Google. Now, I see so many people putting a lot of time and effort into Facebook, YouTube, not so much YouTube, but definitely Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these social media platforms, yet they represent a very small amount of traffic getting passed on to websites. Unlike Google, most of those social media platforms actually don't want you to take the traffic off of their platform and onto your website. In fact, they'll penalize you for it. So if you try this little test for a while, just get with your business Facebook page, continually post links taking people off of the platform, and I guarantee you less people will see your posts over time. The reason for that is because Facebook makes its money from ads, and so they want to make sure that people stay on the platform to see the ads and click on the ads. Now, that doesn't mean that Google doesn't make most of its money from ads. In fact, 98% of Google's revenue is from people clicking on ads. So we know that Google is known for making money from advertising, but those ads always take them off of Google to somebody's website, typically or a landing page. And so Google's whole methodology is to take people off of their platform. So they're okay doing that. And what they want is they want to give the user an amazing experience. So when they search for what it is they're looking for, whether they've got a problem, maybe they're looking for a plumber near me, whatever it might be, what they're doing is they're wanting to make sure that the results that show up are as relevant as possible, because they want to make sure next time you're looking for something, you come back to Google, and that you don't go to Yahoo, or that you don't go to Bing, or that you don't go to any of those other ones. So that's really why it's such a big thing. So this is why SEO is so important, because Google is going to continue to send traffic to your website.